Maya, you going to start?
Yes, I'll start now. Hello, and thank you for participating in today's roundtable discussion. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hoyer to begin officially in just a moment. But before we get started, I wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items. As We ask that all participants please keep themselves muted when they are not speaking. And if you would like to ask a question or make a comment during the Q&A portion of the call, please just raise your hand or type a message in the chat box and we will get to you. For everyone's awareness, this conversation is being recorded and also streamed live on Facebook. Mr. Hoyer, I'll now turn it over to you to begin.
Thank you very much, Maya. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're going to be going now for about an hour and 10 minutes to 2:15. We got a hard stop at 2:15. That won't be nearly enough time to answer all your questions or to give you all the information that you want. But Terrence Taylor in my district office, Antonia Hill downtown, and Jim Notter, who runs the congressional office, as you know, they'll all be available to follow up on this. Obviously, I know that we have all faced, but particularly small business has faced a very, very tough time over the last year. COVID-19 not only assaulted our health and our lives, essentially, where we've lost now hundreds of thousands of people, just tragedy for so many families, but also our economy was assaulted. And we've lost a lot of businesses and we've lost a lot of money. Now, amazingly, the economy has been holding up, I should say. Stock market's good, but that does not necessarily reflect what the status of small business is. So we want to make sure that everybody understands in my district, and frankly, who are listening to this on streaming, what is available. And we've got two experts with us. Antonio Doss, who's the director of the Small Business Small Business Administration for the Washington Metropolitan District Office, located in Prince George County, and Steve Umberger, who's the director of the SBA Maryland District Office for Calvert, Charles, St. Mary's, and Anne Arundel counties. So that we got Prince George's covered, and we've got the 4 Southern Maryland counties covered as well. And frankly, none of us could have contemplated what was happening in March of last year. Now, the virus visited us earlier than that, January. Our response was slow, unfortunately, and it escalated very, very rapidly. And in effect, we shut down the American economy in March. Just an amazing thing to happen. None of us would have contemplated that. And the response to that, we thought was a big response. I don't know whether any of you recall, but the first bill that we passed in March, the president asked for $2.5 billion. We thought that was not nearly enough. And so we passed a bill that had $8.3 billion, passed in a bipartisan fashion. And little did anybody realize when they were voting for an $8.3 billion, which they thought was a pretty good chunk of change, that soon thereafter, we would be passing a $2 trillion bill in the CARES Act. And that over the year, we would be passing bills that appropriate and authorize $4 trillion to meet both the health and economic consequences of COVID-19. We have now passed another piece of legislation, as all of you know, the American Rescue Plan. And it is what it says it is, to rescue, both from a health standpoint, from an economic standpoint, and from an individual family standpoint. But from a business standpoint, I think most of you probably know these gross figures, and you'll want to get into, okay, well, what does that mean for me? And hopefully Mr. Doss and Mr. Umberger can answer some of your questions, probably not all, because we're relatively recent in terms of getting this new bill passed. But we increased the PPP funding by $7.25 billion Now that means there's a total now of $800 billion since March 20th for the PPP program. I'm sure that many of your businesses have taken advantage of that and perhaps can take advantage of it in this sum in the future. Most businesses already have what they needed, but there's some still needing it. Maybe that's one of yours. Congress, we've also extended the deadline to apply for PPP loan until May 31st. That's an important date. May 31st is the deadline for applying for a PPP loan. The bill also creates and provides $28 billion for the restaurant revitalization fund to help struggling restaurants and bars. That's a critical sum. These are grants. And this is money that we have designed, hopefully, to allow businesses to stay in or come back in and open up. This is a very substantial sum of money. I'm not sure exactly what that will be for Maryland, but perhaps, and the program has not been opened up yet because they're still working on how to get it done. It also provides an additional $1.25 billion for a total of $15 billion for shuttered venue operators, theaters, performance sites, et cetera, et cetera. They obviously very badly hit because nobody could go to the sites because we needed a distance. That grant ensures live venues, movie theaters, museums can continue to operate and to stay in business. What we're afraid of is that we're going to lose so many businesses that were in business in February of last year that just could not sustain. That's why so many billions of dollars, indeed trillions of dollars, have been put on the table. Since last March, Congress has also appropriated another $70 billion to provide advancements and provide subsidies on small business loans. We think all of that will be very helpful. Now, of course, you know, we did other things as well that I think will be helpful to small business because we provided with a lot of Americans and American families with substantial resources so that they could buy goods, pay bills, keep afloat. We provided direct payments to Americans, $1,400 to help them through the difficult economic times. Some families got as much as $6,000, $7,000 in payments, which will probably provide them for catching up on their bills and being able to buy some of the products that they put off. We extended and expanded emergency unemployment insurance. Again, that's going to help very substantial. $300 additional payment to the unemployment, supplementing the unemployment, in some cases doubling the unemployment payment, and that's per week. So that's about $1,200 to $1,400 per month additional unemployment payments. That benefit runs through September 6th of this year. And we'll have to consider that again if we think it needs to be extended. And that includes independent contractors and gig employees. As you know, before COVID-19, they were not included. Gig employees were in sort of a limbo area, and as were independent contractors. The bill also provides direct housing and nutrition assistance to those who need it. Very critically important. We have a lot of families who were unable to put food on their table. And we had a lot of families who couldn't pay their rent or couldn't pay their mortgage. The substantial dollars in the recovery, in the rescue plan to do that. The administration and the Congress are working together to ensure that businesses, schools, communities and households have all the tools needed to get through this pandemic safely and build back better. Frankly, had we not invested the $4 trillion last year, put that much on the table, the economy, in my opinion, would be in deep recession at this point in time. There's no doubt in my mind that stimulus, essentially, and payment for absolute necessities that people needed right then has made an extraordinary difference. And this rescue plan will do the same. It is one of the steps to meet this pandemic. We're not through. As you know, we still need to invest substantial sums in infrastructure and in individuals, and we intend to do that. President Biden has talked about that on a regular basis, continues to talk about it. And I would think within the next, I don't want to put a time limit on it, but next 4 to 6 months, we will see some additional assistance. Now, I've asked the two representatives who are with us, I mentioned them earlier, Antonio Doss and Steve Umberger, to join us this afternoon, and they will be available to answer questions, but I'm going to turn over to Antonio and Steve now, an opportunity to make 5 minutes of comments, and then we'll go to questions and insightful answers from Antonio and Steve. All right, Antonio, thank you for being with us.
Congressman Hoyer, thank you for including the Small Business Administration as part of this. I know Steve Umberger and I are both pleased to be able to be here and share some information and hopefully respond to the questions in fine fashion. I want to just cover on a couple pieces, and then Steve will do the same. So one of the key programs that we have, of course, is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And, you know, this was a program that existed for many years, but it was always something that was done very localized after a hurricane or something else happened in a market, and we needed to be able to have recovery. And of course, since COVID, we've been having the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program across the entire country and very active here in Maryland.
Antonio, let me interrupt you for 1 minute.
Sure.
This is a very important program that was meant for the people who are least likely able to compete in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And very frankly, Nydia Velasquez from New York and Maxine Waters from California. Initially, EIDL was not included with money. But as you recall, when PPP ran out of money, the administration Manchin asked for $250 billion extra for PPP. We all were for that, but we said, but it doesn't include the smaller entities that are least competitive in the capital market quest, if you will. And it was at that point in time that we added EIDL and some other programs to make sure that small businesses could in fact get assistance. So Antonio, I'll go back to you.
Okay, great point. Thank you for making that. So one of the things that we've just recently done is made an adjustment to how much borrowers can get under the EIDL program. As many of you may know, even personally, that it was capped at $150,000. We were using a 24-month, or excuse me, a 6-month period of economic injury to determine the amount. And even though technically the funding is available up to $2 million, we were only able to have it at $150,000. So our new administrator, Isabella Guzman, actually in her first few weeks made a key decision, which is to increase the $150,000 max to make it now $500,000 as a maximum. And key to that is changing the 6-month period of injury to actually 24 months. As you know, when the pandemic hit, you know, who was really able to forecast exactly what the duration of this thing was going to be? And early indications, we thought it was going to be shorter, but the reality is we've seen much longer periods. So that's going to be good news. This program has been really successful. It's helped over 3.7 million businesses across the country. Maryland firms have received over $3.5 billion, and we've made loans to them totaling over 67,600 businesses that have received these EIDL loan program funds. So we're pleased that we've been able to do that. We know that there's still a lot of additional requests that are out there for funds for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Our team has been working to revamp some of the processes and some of the internal systems that we have to allow us to get those loans move forward. But we're steadfast and determined to make that happen. So if you're one of those people who needs more than $150,000 and you would qualify for such, please know that as of really just 2 days ago, this new upper limit was put into place. And so it is active now, and available to you. We're reaching out directly from our Office of Disaster Assistance to let people know about this, but also you can reach back out to us and let us know that you're interested in more. If for some reason you haven't already received a loan and you're thinking of applying, we're going to automatically consider it up to the maximum amount, regardless of what the prior situation might have been. The second one I want to just touch base on briefly is the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Program. And as Congressman Hoyer said, between restaurants and the venues, the theaters and the music performing places, none of us got a chance to see a good concert for the last year. I remember my last one, and it was about 3 or 4 weeks before COVID hit. So these groups have really struggled to be able to exist. We have special funding, over $16 billion in grants. This is a grant program. We've been very, very deliberate about trying to make sure we structure it and we communicate how it works so that everybody gets a fair opportunity. Fairness is one of the things that's been driving the agency's whole profile of how we put these programs in place. And I do want to give you a couple pieces of information, and I have a very important update as well that's literally just less than 24 hours old. One of the things, when I say from fairness, we're trying to reach those that have been most difficultly challenged with this environment first. So for the first 14 days of this grant program, we're dedicating that to entities that suffered a 90% or greater revenue loss. Then after that, we'll go another 14 days. And at that next 14 days, we're going to go down to those who are at the 70% level. And then thirdly, we'll go for those who have reduced their revenues by 25% because of COVID. And beyond that, there's additional supplemental funding that'll come into play. Again, trying to make sure the people who suffered the most have the best opportunity. We don't want, sort of the fat cats to be at the front of the line this time. Here's the important announcement. We opened the portal yesterday, and despite a gazillion number of tests and other good things that were underway to make sure this program was up and ready to run, we did experience significant technical difficulties and made a critical decision yesterday at 4:15 to close down the portal. For those of you who are in a business, anything like this, there's a lot of anticipation building to get to this point. And the last thing you want to do is say, we got to shut it down for a little bit. But we decided as an agency that was the best thing to do. We want to reopen it, make sure it's all ready, but we're going to reopen it and give fair notice so that everybody has an opportunity to get queued in the line again, and that no one is at an advantage over another because of this particular mishap. So more to come on that, but this is a great program, and we're really looking forward to having it up and running. I can tell you my colleagues across the agency have been literally working around the clock to push this out. It's a whole different atmosphere working with a grant program as opposed to some of the other things we've been able to do already. So we will pursue our way through this one, and we'll make this one happen as well. And we appreciate your level of patience as we get there, because I know for some of you, waiting another day is even already too long, but please hang in there with us. I'll turn it over to Steve.
Well, thanks, Antonio. Great job, great information. The portal challenge hopefully will be fixed shortly, but let me carry on here with a couple programs I'd like to talk about. But first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I saw some familiar names on the registration list, and to all of you out there, it's good to see you again. So first, let me just thank you, Congressman Hoyer, for having us today, for inviting me along, also with Antonio. And we really value your dedication and all the hard work that you put in to assist the small businesses in Maryland, in particular the district. I want to share some information about a couple of the federal COVID-19 programs, one being the PPP, the other being the Restaurant Revitalization Fund that's coming. A little bit, first of all, for most of you know us, SBA, we've been in business since 1953. We're here to help entrepreneurs and small business start, expand, and in these times survive and prosper. So we want to let you know where we are. I'm the director of the Baltimore District Office. Our district covers the entire state of Maryland with the exception of Prince George's and Montgomery counties. Don't know why that happened. It must have been something many 60 some years ago, but that's the way it is. And we share those two counties with Antonio and his staff. So like I said, I want to start with the Paycheck Protection Program. As many of you know, if not briefly, PPP is a forgivable loan designed to keep employees on the payroll and small businesses up and running. It was first introduced last year through the CARES Act, subsequently reauthorized and re-upped back in late December. And throughout this whole process, through early April of this year, there have been over $745 billion funded to small businesses across the country. I believe it was over 9 million small businesses. So huge amount of funding, huge amount of support coming through a very small agency that has been dedicated and working around the clock to make this happen. In Maryland, 151,000 entrepreneurs have received PPP funding for a total of $14.1 billion, just over $14 billion. And a large amount, a very large amount, and we've gotten our fair share. Like I said, PPP, the second round was reauthorized earlier this year, late last year, earlier this year, expanding the eligibility to more different business structures, nonprofits, expanded the nonprofit eligibility, allowable expenses, and it also permitted PPP round one borrowers to apply for a second draw in round two. With the extension running through May 31st, you're going to find that you need to, if you haven't already, get to your lender, make application. These funds are still very much in play, and a lot of folks are trying to do the best they can to qualify for the second round, but you need to get in early. I expect that funds will most likely run out before the May 31st deadline. You can apply through your existing lender, which is your best, I would say, opportunity to get in to the queue, or you can search on Lender Match, sba.gov, and across the top, you'll find a yellow bar that links to all the COVID-19 programs that are available through SBA. As to the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, as you heard earlier, Antonio mentioned, the Congressman mentioned, this is a new program. It's $28.6 billion that's authorized for the restaurant industry. There's a number of things that are yet to be detailed and put in writing as far as guidance and regulation are concerned, but we expect to have much more available online on the SBA.gov portal next week, and hope to have it up and running, the program, with applications being accepted by the end of the month. With the Shutter Venue going out, a lot of the groundwork's been done, especially with the technology, although we're having challenges now. I think that's going to be alleviated very soon, and building on that framework, restaurant revitalization, I believe, will roll out in a much smoother fashion, at least at the startup. That application likewise will be online. It will also be run through the partnering entities that SBA's identified to supply the point of sale software to many of the local restaurants that we deal with on a daily basis. So as I said, it's either going to be online or alongside of the point of sale applications that our vendors are already using. So we're trying to do everything we can to get this thing to make it simple and streamlined And we just have to be, and patience has been the word throughout all this as we work together, a little bit patient, and we'll get it to you as soon as possible. A couple of thank yous I also want to pass along. We have an outrageously wonderful and experienced and expert group of resource partners in our community. The Maryland Small Business Development Center, who you're familiar with, most likely in the district out of the College of Southern Maryland. SCORE representatives, America's Counselors of Small Business, and the Women Business Centers. All remain ready and available, have been working since day one through phone and video conferences to counsel small businesses. They're fully aware of the SBA programs and are eagerly awaiting to assist you and making applications or whatever other kind of challenges or concerns or needs you may have as far as business education goes. So I want to thank them profusely. We have numerous referrals that come through our office, one-on-one type situations that we refer, and SBDC, SCORE, and the Women Business Centers are more than willing, and they're great partners. And so thank you all very much. And I believe there's a few partners themselves that may be on the call today. So they're on hand and willing and able to help you in every way, business-wise.
Well,
That's
thank
it.
you.
I have to say, all I have to say, a little bit about the partners, sba.gov, look under local resources. You can find a local contact. And with that, I'll turn it back.
Thank you, Steve. We appreciate that. And Antonio, thank you. Maya, are you going to recognize people who want to ask questions?
Yes, so we will now begin the question part of the call. So just make sure to raise your hand. And I think Maria has her hand raised, so I'm just going to unmute her now.
Good afternoon, Congressman Hoyer. Thank you so much for hosting this venue today. This is really to keep communication open. As you know, I live in St. Mary's County. I own the Dunkin' Donuts in St. Mary's and some in Calvert County. And I just wanted to really thank you for your support on the PPP deductibility, as well as the restaurant revitalization fund. I was born and raised in Panama. I learned English in college in the US. And I just want to point out a couple of quick facts. Between 2007 and 2012, 51% of the Hispanics own restaurants, businesses in the US. 49% were African American and 18% were Asian. So the restaurant industry really offers minorities a great opportunity to open businesses. And the one thing that I would say is that this industry is very fragile and has really a long way for recovery. So I really appreciate all your efforts for the PPP and all the other funding. But I will say that if it wasn't for the franchise system, I probably would not be here today. And as well as the PPP funding that you guys approved for us, because the franchise model really gives the opportunity to guide you. They teach you how to do things, how the business works. And I knew nothing about the business before I joined the franchise. And so I would just ask that, don't target the franchise business model with regulations such as the joint employer status, because that will really hurt us. The other issue that we're really finding out right now that it's really difficult. I'm about to open store number 5, and that will be Dunkirk, Maryland. It's people. I can't find people to open. I have delayed my opening a few more weeks because I can't find enough people to open this store. So we're really having a real issue. And it's not a matter of how much we pay. I do believe that the minimum wage should go up, but I know that 15 federal is the right place because going from, some different states that are different levels. So that's really, I think the market should play a role on that in terms of demand. But we're having a really difficult time finding people to come to work. So I would love to hear a little bit more about, what your thoughts are about that.
Well, Maria, you raised a number of questions. Obviously, the franchise relationship on the franchise and trying to figure out how to make it fair for everybody is a continuing issue, as you know. I'm sure we'll be dealing with that, and I look forward to talking to you about it. And congratulations to you on your success. I mean, you're looking to open up a 5th store. That's wonderful. Good for
Thank
you.
you.
As it relates to, I'm for the minimum wage. Obviously, we don't raise it to $15 right away. As you know, it goes to 2024, 2025 that we're talking about in that, and it would be phased in. But with respect to the issue that has been raised, and that you didn't speak to it specifically, but I think you generally are talking about that, is the supplement that we have for unemployment insurance. There are a number of people who believe that that is tamping down the desire of people to go back to work. Very frankly, the experts, a lot of the experts say that that's not happening. People do want to get back to work. They do want to enhance. But in any event, we're going to revisit that issue September 6th, because as I told you, the supplemental, the $300 supplemental to the unemployment insurance lapses as of September 6th. That was an issue this time, and it'll be an issue next time. And we certainly don't want to have a program that dissuades people from taking jobs that are decent paying jobs. Now, when obviously if you're paying $720, I don't mean you are, but if at $725, obviously if you're getting unemployment plus $300, $725 doesn't come close to that in a week. But that's an issue that we continue to grapple with, because nobody wants to, in effect, say to people, look, if you can get a job that can pay you a decent wage, but you stay home because you're getting unemployment plus supplemental, that's not what we want to happen. The PPP, of course, originally was, designed in terms of if you were offered your job back, you had to go back to it, as you know. But in any event, you raised good issues, and we're going to be contending with them over the next 6 months.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And if you wanted to talk to me outside, I'm available anytime. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like we have another question. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, so if you could just introduce yourself. I'm about to unmute you.
Well, now how do they know who you're unmuting?
It's the guest with the email address as the name. So if you could just approve.
What's the email address, Maya?
It's iBots.
Yeah, Linda Bots probably.
Okay, Linda, yes.
Hello, yes.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at her.
How you doing?
Hi there, Linda.
Good to see you, and thank you so very much for doing this. We work with small businesses, and I mean small, less than 50 employees in a number of areas. And one of the things that I read about recently is the program coming up for community navigators. And one of the things that we're very interested in, I work very closely with the Centers for Disease Control, in trying to expand concepts and models like that would also have an eye on public health and making sure that small businesses have an opportunity to participate. One of the things that we've learned over the months is that the small businesses, less than 50 employees, have had some significant challenges or barriers in accessing funds. And so looking towards sustainable models that might be stood up along the way to make sure not only do they have the access, but we provide or able to provide good information about public health and that open those lines of communication. So thank you.
Antonio, you want to try to answer that?
Well,
or speak to it.
Yep. I will. Linda, good to see you, by the way. So the community navigator is a new piece for us at SBA, and really the crux of it is, how do we as a federal entity get more information to everyone? There's a lot of people who are sort of in the mainstream. They read the Wall Street Journal. They're up on everything, and there's a pocket of people that are just difficult to get. Sometimes they're underbanked. They're not tied in with the banking financial institution. We saw that as a huge inhibitor during the Paycheck Protection Program launch, because we had too many people who didn't have connections to a bank. They didn't have connections to a good legal advice attorney system. They didn't have good connections in some respects with financial and accounting and CPA type support. So they weren't in the know necessarily. And it doesn't mean that they're not doing good work. They're just harder to reach. And so what we're trying to do when we are able to launch the Community Navigator program is to be able to deploy resources to work with the nonprofit community, the churches, the neighborhood organizations, wherever we need to be, to make sure that the information we have, like Steve referenced, this tremendous group of resources we have with the small business development centers, with SCORE, with our Women's Business Center. All of these programs provide free, one-on-one, individualized, confidential business coaching, mentoring, and guidance. And if you're a small business and you've never been a small business owner before, I guarantee you there's things you just don't know. And the worst thing to do is to try to figure out all those things on your own when you have available resources. So whether it's the educational resources that help strengthen a business owner's acumen and their business smarts, or if it's getting access to our loan programs and these grant programs that are coming on board, or even our contracting support, you really need to be able to take advantage of those things. So we're hoping that we can use this as a way to really embed SBA as terms of a knowledge source of information and resources to the community in a way that we haven't been able to do before. It's critical that we get to everywhere.
Antonio, I absolutely agree with you. I am just a proponent of holistic approaches. And, one of the areas, a healthy business, a healthy workforce, makes for success. So my, I guess, plight to you is that I think I read about it, know the components, but to consider a bit of an expansion to include a public health component where you anchor these things in the community. So, long after PPP, you have models that are working, keeping small businesses connected. That's what I, certainly want to put out there. And thank you for your time, Congressman Hoyer. Thank you so much for allowing us this time.
You bet.
Okay, thank you very much for the points, too.
Maya, who's next?
So, sorry, hold on just a second.
I don't know something's happening. There we go. We're back.
Yeah. Okay, so Don Tucker asked for Mr. Dawson, Mr. Umberger, do you have any information about when the Navigator program will start? And is there more information about what organizations can apply, how they apply, and other details?
Well, this is Steve. Dawn, how are you? Good to hear that you're out there. Yeah, the guidance is yet to be forthcoming. To the last question, Linda, in the overall scope of the Navigator itself, it's going to be community organization. I've heard that nonprofit is a place that the Navigator proceeds are headed for, but don't have the entire base of what it is. It's been focused on kind of like the hub and the spoke scenario, where you have a unit, the Navigator itself, whether it's healthcare, whether it's access to capital, whether it's access to counseling and training to build that business acumen, a hub to bring folks where folks can go to, word of mouth can spread and get the interest and folk, the traffic into the navigator. But as far as the details of the program, no, we don't have them just yet. So
Steve, you got any judgment on how soon that might be available?
I think it's going to be very soon. I would, if I'm going to put myself on the block, I would say by the end of the month. So we just have to stay tuned.
All right, because that'll be
Antonio?
that'll be a great resource for people.
Yeah,
Oh, it
correct.
will.
Yeah. Okay, who's next, Maya?
Looks like Michael Kelly. I'm about to ask you to unmute so you can ask your question.
Hi, Congressman Michael Kelly with Ruddy Duck and Kennard's Catering.
Right.
I
Hi.
haven't seen you for a while. Hopefully we can get the Sirely event going back again soon.
Hopefully.
So I have two questions. One is related to the relationship between the RRF and the PPP loans. So recipients of the PPP loans, will there be any relationship to how much or if they received it and being able to receive a grant under the RRF? And so I assume that would go to one of the SBA representatives. And then for you, Congressman, the restaurant industry obviously is broken up into a lot of different segments. We have, fast food, fast casual, and in my case, full service, family dining, kind of brew pub. And, the recovery for some of those segments have been pretty quick. In fact, a lot of restaurants have done exceedingly well during the COVID period. They increased sales. Full service restaurants have been hardest hit. And part of that is because we have, typically have much larger facilities that require a whole lot more overhead, a whole lot more staff to facilitate the activities. And we're having a whole lot more difficult time getting people back in the doors, particularly operations like mine, when a brew pub atmosphere where a vibrant bar is a big piece of the equation to be profitable. So when I look at the, look at the prospects of getting back to anything resembling normal sales of 2019, I see a long road. Business travel is a piece of it, and getting people comfortable coming in the restaurants is a huge piece of it. And a lot of that is messaging. It's messaging from our leaders. It's laying the groundwork for people to feel comfortable. And I look at the CDC's latest information that touch points, surfaces is really not part of the equation, but we've been told for over a year that sanitizing every surface is critically important to stop the spread. And so that's a message that should be communicated pretty aggressively, I think. And there's a little story here and there, but I'm not hearing the messaging. So I guess my question is, what should we anticipate now that the majority of people that are most vulnerable to death and serious injury from COVID are getting vaccinated, and we're crossing that threshold? What would you say would be the expectations for us moving forward over the next 2 to 4 to 6 months, and really strong messaging that it's safe to get back to some semblance of normalcy?
Well, let me have Antonio and or Steve answer or speak to the first part of the question in terms of the different kinds of restaurants that you're talking about, full service and the fast service, and the different needs there. Again, the program is in the process of being fully designed.
I understand.
But let me, Antonio, Steve, do you have any comments on that part of the question?
Yeah, I'll take it. I seem to be the bad cop here today, but I'm going to have to say that, yes, we have to wait for those interim final regulations to come out so we know the details. There have been discussions that there's a relationship between the PPP and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, but cannot speculate as to how that's going to come out when it comes out in the final guidance. So just you have to stay tuned and hang in there for that one. It's food trucks, it's full service restaurants, it's any place where people gather to eat and drink. Those are the overall very broad identification of what types of entities will be eligible. but again, we will, let's hope we get this information onto the portal next week and the application system up by the end of the month.
And I just would add to what Steve has said. One of the things that has happened is this hasn't been an SBA ivory tower, decision process. We've had extensive consultation with restaurant association, restaurateurs, places that are brew hubs and such, so that we've really tried to make sure we are incorporating all facets of that industry and being realistic about what's really been happening to the industry and how we can best support it. So we're hopeful that what we put together with that added level of knowledge injected into our decision-making process will be one that'll be in alignment with what you really need and what you desire. But hopefully more of that'll be coming out soon.
Okay, I would just one comment. You were talking about the EIDL loans and idle. Yeah, you're jumping from 90% to 70% to 25%. The gulf between 70 and 25% loss of sales is extraordinary leap. I would just encourage you to reconsider that. 25% loss in revenue versus where we're at over 40% loss in revenue.
Okay.
Is a huge leap. If I was only 25% down, I might be able to break even now, but at 40% I'm bleeding money still.
Yeah, you're almost half out. Yeah,
that's a big gulf there. So I would encourage to recommend they put one more stepping stone in there for eligibility.
Okay, making a note of that. Thank you very much, too.
And Antonio, the point Mike is making, like PPP, we ran out of money. And as you pointed out, what we did in the next tranche, when we were putting 250 billion extra into PPP, we made sure that the people who had hurt the most but had no ability to apply, they were unbanked, as you pointed out, were covered. And I think that's the point Mike is making. If you go down to 25% right away, you're going to have some people in the middle who are either going to get less or maybe get nothing. Mm-hmm. Notwithstanding the fact that they had a bigger loss. I think Mike makes a good point there.
Yeah.
Mike, on messaging, my view is a relatively simplistic view. And that view is until we get 85% of everybody vaccinated, there's going to be a reluctance by CDC to do a more robust messaging to the American people and frankly, the leadership, including the president and members of Congress and things of that nature in terms of, and Fauci himself. The good news is the president's objective of 100 million people or 100 million shots, not 100 million people, but we've exceeded that, and we've exceeded it substantially, and we're moving very quickly. I was just at the new site that Brown and I and other Marylanders fought for in Prince George's County, which is going to do 3,000 a day in Greenbelt, at the Greenbelt Metro. I was there yesterday. I frankly think the faster, and we put $160 billion into the healthcare component, 30 billion into vaccinations and substantial additional monies into testing, tracing, pharmaceutical research, et cetera, but a very substantial, because the president and the Congress both agreed the faster you get that done, the more positive messaging you're going to have and the more safety there's going to be. And therefore, the more confidence the public will have of coming into your place, sitting at the bar, sitting at the table, et cetera, et cetera. I took my daughter to dinner along with some other family members the other day, and she wanted to wait for a warm night because she did not want to sit inside. I was perfectly, I go to a little restaurant here, and I took my other daughter, her birthday's 4 days before that, to a restaurant. We sat inside, but they were at half capacity and everybody was 6 feet apart. But I think the real trick is get vaccinated, getting vaccinations done ASAP, as quickly as possible, so that the confidence of the American people and the confidence of CDC in giving advice will be enhanced. And we're doing that at breakneck speed, which I think is very positive.
I agree. I don't want to grab too much time, but just one response. I agree with you, but I think, our county is your district is a very diverse population. And I think the people that are anxious to get vaccinations are doing it and doing it aggressively, but there's a pretty big portion of the population down here in Southern Maryland who's not going to do it.
Well,
and that's, I don't agree with that, but that's a reality. So I'm worried when you say that 80 or 85% vaccinated, that scares me because I don't see that happening.
Let me tell you an issue. Well, that's not what I say. That's what CDC says. That's
Okay.
That's so you can get to herd immunity.
I understand.
Yeah, right. You have to get to a high enough percentage of the folks having been vaccinated. And that means, in terms of Pfizer and Moderna, 2 shots.
Sure.
So in any event, but I think, Mike, I understand what you're saying, but I think that's the reality. And in terms of those people who are reluctant to get vaccination, we got to urge them to do so. And very frankly, there are going to be a number of establishments and the way they give their customers confidence, and this is going to be very controversial, people aren't going to like it, is that a restaurant on their own says, look, if you got a pass and you've been vaccinated, you're welcome in. But if you don't have if you haven't gotten vaccinated, we can't take the risk of our other clients, our other customers being concerned that there's some people in here who have not been vaccinated. Now, that's going to be controversial, but I think some people are already doing that, as you know.
Yeah. Thank you, Congressman.
Yeah.
Thank
Right.
you. We have time for one more question, so I wanted to let Stephanie
Maya?
go ahead.
Maya?
Yes.
I thought we were going till 2:15.
Yeah, so it looks like there's only one more question in the queue as well.
There's one
So-
question. Only one
Yeah.
question. We're all out early. We get a break.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Stephanie, I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
All right, can you guys hear me all right?
Stephanie, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Stephanie Witt. I'm owner of Witt Hospitality and the Chick-fil-A as well. I want to say that Maria and Michael, I echo the things that they were saying earlier. We definitely are performing with less capacity of employees than we need. And we're hoping that things will change in Maryland, especially Southern Maryland, and get some people back to work. That's been very challenging. And as well, as Michael said, we are challenged because we've lost a lot of our catering sales because people aren't having business lunches like they used to have. We've lost almost all of our catering sales, as well as dining rooms have been closed here as well. So on top of that, one of the concerns I have is beginning 2021, I was, I guess, not expecting, probably because I was so busy running the business, wasn't paying enough attention to the legislation, but unemployment tax went from 0.3% as a minimum to 2.2% as a minimum. So on top of all of the other things that are taking our money from us and helping us to survive as a business, we have this huge increase of unemployment tax. I was wondering if I could get some thoughts on that. Do we see that staying as high as it's gone? Is that going to be the new trend? Or when things level out and we stop affording all of these unemployment cases that we've had to do for COVID, is that going to be coming down? It was just a really large expense that was unexpected. I'm sure, there's great reasons. And of course, I'm very thankful for everything that Maryland has done to help us small businesses stay in business this year, working with us, our local health departments working with us, making sure that we can, at least keep some business going. And I've appreciated all of that. So I'd like to get some thoughts on that, if you would.
Stephanie, I don't know that I have a very informed answer, but we will, in terms of the unemployment tax escalating because of the obviously experience. But obviously I can fully understand that's a real problem. You say it went from 0.3 to 2+.
Yeah, it went from 0.3% to 2.2%, and that's the minimum. I'm lucky enough to be on that lower number. I know other people who aren't on the lower number are paying much, much more than that. But I was like, wow, that's just a huge jump all at once, especially for us. Yeah, especially for us small businesses that are trying to stay afloat and do the best that we can and recoup some of what has been lost due to this deadly virus. So I'm hoping, to get some more information down the road on that.
Stephanie, let me ask you, did you get a PPP loan?
I did not.
Okay.
I haggled back and forth on whether to do that and felt that God led me not to do it.
One thing we tried to do in terms of the question you're raising, obviously what the PPP loans said was, if you use the PPP to keep your employees on the payroll, then that will be converted into a grant. So you won't have to pay it back. And that was to both incentivize employers and employees to stay on the job, even if they couldn't come into the job, but that they would be on the payroll and have whatever benefits they got as an employee. But let me look into this further. You raise a good question. I really don't know I don't have a good answer in terms of the increase. We try to preclude that by keeping employees on the payroll, but you didn't have a PPP loan. One thing we've heard, of course, is that even if you had a PPP loan and you try to get your employees back, because the unemployment at one point in time, as you recall, was 600, which was very, very hard for any employer to replicate. But theoretically, if you offered them the job, they were required to go back on. If they didn't go back on, they would lose their unemployment. Now, whether that happened or not, I don't know. But let me look into that, because I really haven't given that a lot of thought in terms of the increase in that tax. So Jim Notter or Terrence Taylor will get back to you on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I understand that's the last question, according to Maya.
Sorry, sir. It looks like we actually just got one more question in.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, so Anoop asks, it looks like they're curious to find out from small business colleagues, how is the estimated taxes that are due on April 15th impacting your businesses? Sorry, this might be a question for the broader group, but the due date to file taxes were extended, but the IRS extended the date for filing the estimated taxes. I'm sorry, that might be a bit of a broader question, but I just saw it, so I wanted to flag.
I'm not sure what the question is. It's my understanding that we've been extended by 1 month. Now, whether we've extended on the income tax filing, now whether that was applicable, maybe somebody else on the phone knows, to the estimated tax as well. Does anybody on our know the answer to that question? I don't know off the top of my head. We can find out. Why don't you get the name of that person who raised that issue and have James get back to them, Maya?
Sure. Okay, I'll do that.
James Lufshin handles tax and budget for me, and he'll get back to you on that. Okay, well, that was apparently the last question. So I want to thank everybody. I know it has been tough. I voted for every one of these bills. All of them, but this last one, were bipartisan bills signed by President Trump. This one, of course, signed, the most recent one, by President Biden. This was not bipartisan, as you know. The Republicans thought we've done enough, and so they did not vote for this bill. But I think there are very substantial problems still facing us. This bill is a lot of money, a lot of resources for a lot of different entities, and hopefully will, again, the first thing we want to do is keep people afloat. And the second thing, so they didn't go out of business and disappear, in effect. That hurt them, that hurt the employees, it hurt everybody. So that we want to try to help in any way we can. Terrence, are you on?
Yes, sir.
Terrence, give your phone number for people. They may already have it, but give your phone number for people.
Yes,
So-
they can reach me at 202-225-6707. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, great. Antonia, why don't we make Terrence the touchstone for the calls? And then he can get a hold of you and maybe you can get back to him depending upon what the question is, or one of our staff that knows the answer or can get the answer can get back to them. All right, I want to thank all of you for hanging in there. I want to thank you for what you do for our community, for our for my district and for our state and for the country. Entrepreneurs are the really basis for our success as a country over the years, I mean, over the centuries. And we want to make sure that you can stay in business, make a profit, provide jobs, and help our state and our country. So thank you very, very much. We look forward to your questions. Antonio and Steve, thank you very much for being with us. And if you will get the information back to us when these programs are up, the venue issue, the navigator issue, other issues, we will get that to all these folks and more. We'll get that information out.
We'll be happy to do that.
All right,
Absolutely.
everybody.
Congressman, thank you for all that
Thank you.
appreciate you.
You bet. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great
Thank you,
afternoon.
Congressman.
Great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Antonio, Steve, again, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Bye-bye.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.